Board of Education. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There is one amendment to the agenda under item 12, executive session. You'll see on the printed copy in front of you an added 12A for negotiations, leaving 12B and 12C as both personnel executive sessions that were originally on the agenda. Is there a motion to approve that as amended?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I move we approve the amended agenda.
Thank you. In a second.
Second.
And seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. On to recognitions and presentations. First, You Make a Difference Award with Jennifer Camion.
Thank you. Staff members are nominated by colleagues to receive a You Make a Difference Award for their support of students and the mission of Salina Public Schools. Board of Education members surprise the recipients during their workday with a lapel pin and a handwritten note. Our first individual this evening is Gautama Dandu. He's with Coronado, and he's a grade 2 teacher. Gautama goes above and beyond to make Coronado a wonderful learning environment. He connects with students throughout the school, provides a safe space when they need a break, and offers extra support during his plan time. A true champion for Coronado students, thank you for making a difference. Gautama. Carla Walker, South Middle School paraeducator, is our next individual. Known for making strong connections and building solid relationships with students, Carla's caring approach provides terrific support in her school. The special education students she works with make great strides in academics and independence. She works very hard to make learning fun. Thank you for making a difference, Carla. Holly Elligood is with Huesner, and she's an ESL bilingual teacher. Holly's communication and bilingual skills shine in every aspect of her job. She ensures English and Spanish-speaking parents are well informed by calling, emailing, and meeting with them. She helps all of her students have a voice, and she translates for her colleagues. Thank you, Holly, for making a difference. Aaron Stein, MIS Systems Analyst, always responsive to colleagues' requests for help with data. Aaron is a great example of how collaboration supports our educational mission. Her assistance with data projects has been invaluable and has ensured administrators' goals are met with precision. Thank you for making a difference, Aaron. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thanks to all those outstanding staff members. On to item 4B, Visible Learning Update. Welcome Dustin Dooley and Jill Graff.
Well, thank you for having us. Mrs. Graff is our instructional coach at South Middle School, and I'm the principal. Start first with our smarter targets, and I don't know, kind of as we started this journey, we developed our goals and our targets. And our first one was by October of this year, we wanted all our teachers to be using learning intentions and success criteria at the usual level of frequency. And we measure that with our walkthrough data, which I'll show an example of here shortly, as well as a teacher self-assessment that teachers look at during their PLC time. Our second smarter target was by February of this year that all of our students, when asked, will be able to describe what they're learning and how they are learning it, and really what a good learner consists of. And last year we did an autobiography and a student survey, and we'll redo that again in February to see hopefully growth from last year to this year. And then by May of this year, students will know our learning dispositions and be able to apply them to their daily learning. We have classroom posters in every classroom, as well as learning disposition lessons that Mrs. Graff will go over that here shortly, to really try to put those characters within our students. And then kind of our next phase, which we haven't started yet, is by January, not this coming January, but January of 27, that all teachers are using feedback at the usual level of frequency. And we've not tackled that yet, but we're hoping to start that later this school year.
So I get to talk about learning intentions and success criteria. This is obviously something we started kind of last year and we worked on this year a lot. We all have them on our boards and we know what they are and we know what they do. We're just working on getting the students engaged and so they know what they're used for also. So these are just some examples. These both happen to be out of a math classroom and these are out of an English and reading classroom.
Up on the screen is an example of the walkthrough form that we use. Myself and my two other assistant principals, we attempt to get 10 to 20 classroom walkthroughs a week, depending on the week. But really, we just keep it basic. We're really focusing on being able to identify what the learning intention is in the classroom, as well as what the success criteria is. And we'd like to see teachers interact or have students interact with the learning intention and have teachers as they're presenting their lesson, putting the success criteria, using the success criteria and using learning intentions within the lesson. And then finally, we're just looking at, is the student able to communicate, let us know what they're learning it, and probably more importantly, how they're learning it. So that's just a sample of a walkthrough that we use. And then
we also have teachers do self-assessments on themselves. So using their walkthrough data that they get, we talk about, are their learning intentions and their success criteria meeting these things that we have up here? So we kind of go through those in our PLCs and we chit-chat about those a lot.
our learning dispositions, I'm not going to read through them all, but our acronym is COOGS. So for each letter of COOGS, we have a different learning disposition that we felt when we were developing these that if students would master, would obviously make them a better learner, not just in our school building, but outside, making better decisions, those type of things. So our first learning disposition is curious. Our second for O is ownership. And then we do have, like I said, these posters in the classroom kind of gives visual reminders of what, we have some that say what the teacher does, what the teacher says, but these just say what the student does and what the student says. U is for understanding. G is for growth mindset. And S is for self-control, which middle school kids sometimes struggle with. And we wanted a way to be able to measure have students measure themselves over time with those learning dispositions. And we were, I believe it was at our last visible learning training, and we threw around some ideas, but what we found was we looked at our three rubrics that our teachers use for our district strategic plan for critical thinking, communication, and self-directed learning, and we felt that the self-directed learning rubric, just the way it is, would probably be the best route for our students to go. Our teachers will use this for students, measure them, but we would like students to measure themselves at the beginning of the year, which now will probably be at the beginning of the second semester, and then at the end of the second semester to see if those learning dispositions have, kicked in a little bit, I guess.
So we have these learning dispositions and we got them all set up and ready to go, but then we thought, well, how are we going to tell the kids what these mean? How are we going to show them? So what we did is one of our first in-services is they kind of were sitting in tables, and so at their tables they were each given one of the letters, and so I said, here, now make a lesson. Well, of course it wasn't quite that easy, but I said they could use AI, they could use whatever they wanted, but they had to create some lessons. So in the end, I had almost 3 lessons for each letter. So we narrowed it down to 2 good ones, kind of combining some to make, we have 2 lessons for each learning disposition. And then they teach them, each subject takes 1 a week. So like this week it was English, and they'll teach that lesson sometime this week during their lesson. And then we kind of continue through the cycle. So I guess there's more lessons, I think. Sorry, I forget what's on them.
Yeah, just a few examples. And our final slide is next steps. One of the things that Jill mentioned earlier, our teachers are doing a really good job of making sure their learning intention and success criteria are posted. I think the next step would be just to have students interact with them more, have the teachers referencing them more, and students interacting with them more. And then in January, we have another visible learning training where our teachers are currently collecting their own evidence of learning in the classroom that they're going to do some stuff with. So they're working on that. And then we'll start in February with our school collected evidence and measure that to what we had last year. And then continuing over the summer to align our content matter with creating learning intentions and success criteria. And then the next phase for us will be feedback, implementing feedback and going from there. So I think that's all we got.
Questions for them? Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you coming.
I did have one, I'm sorry, so it'd be faster. I was just curious, do you feel like it's actually deepening the learning? Or do you feel sort of like it's stuck on top of everything else you were already doing?
I feel like it's deepening the learning. Our district's made it a very, I don't know the best way to say this, but it's something that's on the forefront, and it's something that we've emphasized. And I think as teachers continue to buy in and continue to do the things that we're asking them to do, it's going to really help improve student learning. I think it has already, and I think it will continue to.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're on to item 5 on our agenda, approval of the consent agenda items. Those items this evening are the minutes of the October 8th, 2024 regular meeting, the personnel report, financial report, including the October bills list, the September treasurer's report, the September investment report, and the September journal entries. Approval of the following encumbrance listings. First, to Veritiv for the renewal of uninterrupted power supplies for Central High, South High, and the Operations Center in the amount of $37,989.29, and to Pitney Bowes, Inc. in the amount of $38,327.40 for the purchase of a new Mail Center 3000, and approval of the Art Club at Salina High School Central. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda? Ian?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thanks, in a second. Bonnie seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. There were no requests to speak at public forum this week, so on to item 7A, Summer School 2024 Review and 2025 Proposal with Jody Craddock Iceland.
Good evening. Okay, so thank you for letting me come up and present for the 2024 review, 2025 proposal for summer school. Let's see. There we go. So this past year, in 2024, we had approximately 845 students that we served in summer school. Compared to 2023, that is 150 students less than we did the year before. The decreases that we saw were in middle school and in high school, and I'll get into some of those reasons here in a little bit. But at middle school, we actually had 130 students who enrolled for the program, but only 85 of those students attended. So between enrollment and that first day, we lost 45 students. And so again, when we get to the middle school portion, I'll kind of explain like some things that we're going to do to try to help some of that. For high school, enrollment was down because we weren't able to service all of the needs for driver's ed due to a lack of driver's ed instructors. But again, we've worked to try to fix that problem, and we've got 2 new certified instructors, and we're working on getting an additional one this year. In 2023, we had 112 students who had earned their driver's permit, and this year we were only able to do 45 just because of the lack of instructors that we had. So we'll work on getting that number up for this next school year. As in the past, we had one high school, which was South High School. We had 2 elementary locations, and in each elementary location, we did have a preschool in each one, and those classes were full this past year. We were able to keep smaller class sizes with an average of 13 students, and we had social workers at each of our sites. So here it just says elementary site, but we did have one social worker that was shared for secondary. Food resources, we were able to provide not only the summer lunch program to our students, but we worked with the food bank and were able to get food resources for families as well. And busing was provided for all locations, and we had an increase in community collaborators this past year. For elementary highlights, as I mentioned in that first slide, that we had a little bit of a decrease. We did not have that decrease in elementary. In elementary, we actually had an increase of 30 students enroll. So compared to 2023, we had 430, where this last year we had 460. We still had the same number of classrooms that we serviced, and so those students were kind of spread throughout those different grade levels. We were able to, some of our celebrations, that we were able to use iReady assessment data to measure reading and math progress. We felt like that gave us a more accurate measurement and growth. As far as math, one of the things we learned in reading is that not all of our teachers were using it for reading because they wanted students off of the computers during that time. And so it wasn't until kind of that second week summer school that we caught, like, oh, not everybody's using it, which is great that they have the students off of the computers. And so we'll just have to make sure for this next school year, if iReady is what we use, then we'll start at the beginning of that. And we also found a little bit of discrepancy because of the frequency that iReady was used in some of the classrooms. So we'll just have to make more specific guidelines for iReady if that's what we're going to use as that data point for reading. In the past, we always used BAS, and since we had moved away from that, that was kind of one of those things we jumped on, okay, let's do iReady, and we just didn't get clear expectations out to the teachers. As far as math, we did have an 86% of students who maintain or showed growth during summer school. All of our teachers in summer school did use iReady Math. Let's see. For the skills that we worked on in reading and math, we used RDA skills, fluency, comprehension, and additional skills that were identified by the reading coaches for what we worked on during reading. And in math, we had coaches help us, again, identify standards that needed reinforcements, and along with fluency at each of the different grade levels. As mentioned before, we increased our enrichment through community partnerships at each building. We were able to work with AmeriCorps senior programs, and we had 3 foster grandmas in our buildings. Salina Food Bank provided us 217 food bags that were divided across the 3 buildings that we were able to get out to families. Central Kansas Mental Health Center held groups in each of our buildings, so it didn't discontinue services for students. And Salina Public Library donated 500 books that students were able to use while they were in summer school, and then at the end of summer school, they were donated to the students. And so each of our students got to take a book home at the end. And again, as always, great relationships were built, and kids were able to make friends kind of across schools. For middle school, we served 85 students. That was a decrease of 26 students, and I mentioned before kind of that decrease in middle school. So we had a decrease of 26 students compared to 2023, but then I went back and I looked at some data before that, and in 2022 we had an enrollment of 80 students. So It'll be interesting to see like this next year with some prevention things that we're going to put in place there. And some of that is when we have counselors call parents to talk through with parents about enrolling for summer school, it's really giving that education piece to parents on why it's so important for students, their middle school student to attend summer school. And so that's something that we can do on our part, is helping to educate parents that way. Not only in middle school did our students work on math and reading, we kind of grew that reading just to ELA as a whole, and we worked on writing skills this year, and we also did STEM projects. So before summer school started, we had each of the middle school teachers that were hired for the positions come in, and we had planning days, and so they were able to collaborate together. They came up with themes for the different grade levels. The different themes they had were, like in 6th grade, they did the Olympics. 7th grade, they did the Dog Days of Summer. And 8th grade, they did Around the World. And so those STEM projects were centered around those different themes. We had an 82% of students improve in both their math and ELA skills, and our teachers did assessments in the classrooms for those scores. 75% of the students that completed our survey for summer school said that the most engaging part was STEM activities, and that they had positive experiences. And so that science and hands-on activities were what they really enjoyed the most. For high school, we served 300 students. Again, that number is lower than 2023 by about 100 students. And as mentioned before, we just had a decrease in certified instructors for driver's ed. And we also had just a little bit of a lower number on ACT prep, the students who enrolled in that course as well. As far as driver's ed, we anticipate that number will go back up again this next year with those certified instructors. And so our credit recovery, our students were able to earn 281 total half credits. For driver's ed course, 45 permits were earned. We had 13 students who participated and completed the ACT prep, and then 15 students participated medals 2A and 2B. And from that, I think 100% of the students were able to earn college credit for that as well. Excuse me. For celebrations, we had a completion rate of 100% for those enrichment courses, and an 87% completion rate for the credit recovery courses. As to why we were able to have such a high rate, it was really in that flexibility of our staff and really wanting to meet the needs of our students. For 2025, we propose that our program will run June 2nd through July 2nd. For the elementary program, buildings are still to be determined, and for secondary, it would be at Central High School. Times would remain the same as last year. For elementary and middle school, there would be no charge. For high school credit recovery courses, no charge. $110 for those elective courses, $175 for driver's ed, and then $55 for ACT prep. Are there any questions?
In reference to the number of kids, as far as attendance going down, I understand the part for driver's ed, but there should be a direct positive correlation between our scores going up and the number of kids needing to be in attendance for summer school. Is that correct, or are you seeing that?
Well, since parents are also able to make that decision on whether or not students attend summer school, that has a lot to do with it. And so really that education piece of us talking to parents and getting them to understand and kind of buy into why students need that. This past year, I got to work with Melanie Hammond, and as her and I worked together, we were really trying to change kind of that, the attitude of summer school, per se, as to instead of you have to go because you maybe weren't passing classes, as this is a time for enrichment to help support you for that next year. And so that's something that we're continuing to work on this next year and really trying to just change that attitude of summer school.
I guess the question I had, and I know you just talked about attitude and things like that. What, I guess, are we thinking created that? We said, I think you said you had 120 register, but between registration and the day it was to start, we had that many people fall off.
Right.
What's the, I mean, do we have any insight as to why?
When given, like some of those reasons, I did write some of those down as when teachers called, and some talked about wanting to go out of town a little more than what they had thought when they enrolled students. Then they also mentioned if they were going to do private tutoring instead, and then we also had some other like personal type of issues as well for families.
This is on our action agenda to approve the plan for 2025.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the 2025 summer school program as presented. Congratulations, too. Good job.
In a second. Jim seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you so much. On our action agenda, next item, 7B, LED lighting upgrade proposal, Phase 1 with Paul Minching.
Good evening, everyone. So last month, we presented our energy rebate proposal, Phase 1, based on feedback that we received from the board regarding specific facilities. We swapped Sunset with Hageman, so that increased the price just a little bit. Basically, all of our elementaries run in that $100,000 range to do them. We are performing a project over Christmas break at Sunset, and so to help with cleanup and to facilitate everything at the same time, we thought, we can hopefully perform that at the same time. So my recommendation is to adopt Phase 1 and to swap Sunset for Hageman in that original proposal.
Questions or motion?
I move that we, okay.
Do you perceive there being any impact to your schedule after making those changes?
No. It'll be quick. They bring in a lot of electricians, 10 electricians, and they'll be in and out pretty quick. So.
I move that we approve Phase 1 of the LED lighting upgrade proposal as presented in the amount of $214,443.
Scott seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, sir. And item 7C, KASB Delegate Assembly. Superintendent Exline.
Okay, so each year you send a delegate to vote on your behalf at the KASB Delegate Assembly. That happens during the KASB convention, which is actually this weekend. It is really helpful to that delegate, and your delegate this year is Dana, if the board has reviewed the items that will be considered, and if you have provided direction about how you want her to vote. She will be asked to vote on 3 items, and they're all in your packet. You've had a chance to review them. The first, just to remind you, is the KASB legislative priorities. Please remember that KASB uses those priorities to determine what they will and won't testify on. So if it is a priority, it is something that they absolutely will weigh in on if legislation comes related to that priority. KASB, as a reminder, does advocate on behalf of local boards, and so you have to direct where their advocacy lies. The second is the KASB Constitution. There are several recommendations in your board packet for updates, and those are all noted in the packet in the red highlights. And then the third vote that she will be asked to make is for the president-elect. Dr. Emily Reiner is the candidate, and she has been endorsed by the nominating committee. You will notice in your packet the list of the people that are on that nominating committee. They represent different sizes of school districts all over the state of Kansas, and her essay and information was also in the packet for you to review. So at this time, what we need is for any discussion to happen about those particular votes that Dana will be asked to make, and then if you're supportive, we need a vote to suggest to her that she cast a supportive vote for those, so that she's speaking on your behalf and not just her behalf.
Discussion, questions, comments?
I'll have a comment. It sounded like they were changing the way they nominate the president-elect because it was hard to get people to meet as a nominating committee and hard to get people to volunteer for that position. So this seemed like a good new way to try it, see if it worked better. So I guess I would say it seems like a good idea to me.
Anyone want to make a motion? Go for it.
I'm ready now.
Yes.
I move that we approve the casting of a supportive vote for the KASB legislative priorities, constitutional amendment, and the president-elect candidate as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second? Got seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand.
You want to vote?
Yeah.
Yes, you can vote.
Any opposed?
I didn't know if you could vote, Raj.
Okay. Motion carried 7-0. Next on our discussion agenda, item 8A, legislative priorities for 305 with Superintendent Nixline.
Okay, so just like KASB does, we have in the past developed a local legislative platform. And so each year, the way we've done that is the administrative team has drafted that platform. We have used as a basis for our platform things that were popping up in the legislature last year, the KASB platform and the United Schools Administrators platform as well. We also look at what KNEA is advocating for, because all of those institutions with one voice are more powerful than alone. And so there is in your board packet a draft for your consideration. The platform guides my conversations that I have with legislators about the needs in Salina Public Schools, and it also helps provide local context for our priorities. A lot of times I will get calls saying, you know, this is being discussed, how would that impact Salina? And that's the most common question I get for those people from the people that are representing us in Topeka. And so having that narrative of context before the priorities are named is helpful for them. The document that we have provided to you actually includes 8 priority areas this year. Financing schools, and that speaks to keeping the current funding formula, funding the CPI. Public funds for public schools, that area speaks to that public funds should not be diverted from public schools, where we are serving all students, no matter background, no matter preparation for school, we serve all kids. Unfunded mandates, that section speaks to if there are legislative priorities that are going to cost money, that they need to consider that and send funding with them. Recruitment and retention of highly qualified teachers. We all know the quality of the teacher in the classroom is the number one thing that predicts student success that's in our control. And so some priorities to help us be able to recruit and retain staff. Special education funding, as you know, that's been a priority for years and continues to be so. Mental health, that is an area in our local needs assessment that is cited repeatedly, and there are some things at the state level that are funded to help us in that area, and so some priorities there. Early childhood education, we've talked about 85% of brain growth happens before kids are 3. And so that early childhood education is critical for success once they hit our doors. And then local board authority, that really speaks to leaving decisions to the local level so that the constituents that elect you, you're closest to them, allowing you to make the decisions because you have the tightest connection with those people in our local community and what is needed here. So for each area, the document provides that background information, and then it does list at least one priority. In some of the areas, there are 4 to 5 priorities. And I'm asking right now for direction from the board if there are priorities that you feel like we missed, or if there are priorities that are in there that you think, you know what, we really need to remove this and put our focus elsewhere. I'd like to know that. And then my intention would be next month we would bring this back for final approval.
Questions, comments?
I'd say thank you for putting it together. Looks like some work was done.
Yeah, appreciate the work of everyone who put it together, and know it will be well received by those who need to hear these things. So, any other comments, questions? We will come back to our agenda at our December meeting then. Next, on to school board reports and upcoming dates of importance. Item 9, there's 2 dates on our upcoming calendar. Thursday, November 14th this week, the Smoky Hill Education Service Center Legislative Luncheon with the forum starting at 9:30. And this weekend, November 15th through 17th, Kansas Association of School Boards Conference in Wichita. Scott, any report?
Did you make a difference for Aaron Stein, which was really nice? A lot of times we don't realize that the computer technology department is almost like a complaint center. So usually when people call, something's not working. So it was nice to recognize her. Attended opioid task force meeting, and then also the adult education. I'll let Bonnie do that since she took some notes as well. So.
I was walking downtown on lunch one day, and there were the whole South Middle 7th graders at their culture crawl with Cash Hollister working his magic on them at the City Lights stage. That was fun. I attended the CKCIE Board of Control meeting, and that went on a long time. I guess let me try and summarize. It's really hard to find enough staff to fill all the required positions, especially for high-need students. We have a lot of teachers on waivers or provisional licenses or an apprentice or residency status, and there are some excellent teachers there, but they're just not fully licensed yet for some of those positions. We have a few disabled teachers, one who is blind and uses a guide dog and is doing a good job, as I understand. And there was a lot of discussion about training and needing coaches to follow up in the classroom after teachers and pairs are trained. and there was a concern about how to get higher pay rate for paras, and that Schwann's pays significantly more than our para pay. On another subject, I attended the author Meg Medina's presentation at the Salina Public Library. She also presented at South High, and at the library she read a picture book for little kids. I delivered a You Make a Difference award to Mr. Dondu at Coronado, and as in several of these cases, he was anxious to get back to work and not have his time taken up by an award. I invited Melanie Hammond to speak to the Salina Rotary Club on our CTE programs. She presented on October 28th. And again, I was dismayed to hear that the starting salary of dental hygienists is about half again as much as an elementary teacher's starting salary. I saw the South High Theater production of Little Shop of Horrors, which is kind of gruesome, but I guess the name is The Little Shop of Horrors. So, and I did songwriting workshops with all the fourth graders at Oakdale, which was a lot of fun.
Good evening. On the 10th, I attended the Smoky Hill Educational Service Center Executive Board meeting where we discussed the FY 2025 budget presentation, legislative luncheon for this Thursday that was just mentioned, and the executive directives goal and executive session for personnel and salary review. 15th, I was able to attend the local town hall with Senator Roger Marshall at the Knights of Columbus building. It was a very informative meeting for me, by him. And a couple of things that were discussed were state agricultural incentives and future energy incentives that were pretty genius, and I look forward to seeing those come to fruition. On 16th of October, I was at the Salina Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting in the public forum and inquired more about the updates at Barclay Park. The board further discussed Glenford Hill property sale right here adjacent to us, and the update plan to relocate the park playground across the street. We also discussed the installation of the water wall and splash park area at the south end of Jerry Ivy Memorial Park, and the update and expansion of the memorial at the park's namesake. On 7th November, I was able to go to Schilling School and visit my 5-year-old granddaughter's classroom and practice some math with her. We got to participate in some counting to 100s, and I'd like to thank Miss Carly Colton for having us in the classroom. It was really fun for both my granddaughter and I. On the 9th of November, I was able to go to the Salina Area Chamber of Commerce Military Affairs Council Commanders Club Dining Out, which took place at the Salina Homewood Suites on Saturday evening and accompanied by my wife. This year's featured speaker was Tyson Pina, the retired Air Force veteran, aviation department head at the Kansas State University of Salina Aerospace and Technology Campus. These events are always enjoyable and insightful. And then just yesterday, we attended the Salina Veterans Memorial ceremony in Sunset Park, and it was a superb ceremony. I was floored by a bunch of first graders that recited the greater part of the Declaration of Independence. That's all I have for today.
I gave Holly her You Make a Difference award, and she was awfully sweet, got a little teary, and was thankful for our support in continuing her education. We're thankful for her. It sounds like she does a fabulous job. Also finished up all the school marathons, and we are done with 2024.
I handed out a You Make a Difference award to Carrie Walker, and attended the Salina Adult Board meeting that Scott shared. I would tell you all about. So the adult education is just amazing what all they do there. But they were really excited this last meeting because they had their first inmate graduate with the GED, because they go into the jails, And so that's just the first of many that they are working with. So it's, and another thing with ESL, they have over 15 countries represented in their ESL programs and 7 languages. But they don't learn the language, they just always speak English, so then they all have to speak English, which works because nobody knows 7 languages. So anyway, it's a good program.
All right. I attended the AI symposium at the Missouri School Board Association. I thought it was interesting. I thought I'd be like the only out-of-state guy there, but they had folks from Texas even who had come up from the Texas School Board Association to attend this. It was very interesting. I think the most interesting part for me is, they ask who's familiar in using AI, and I was like, I really don't. And they said, who's got a cell phone? And I realized all of a sudden that I was. And from an education standpoint, they covered not only AI at the education level, but also dealing with building and student security, parking lot security, all sorts of things. And there were a few very powerful statements that were made, and I think probably the biggest one as we start, having conversations about AI and those things, is that AI is not what will put you out of work. It's the people who know how to use AI that will put you out of work. I thought that was very impactful because one of the things they talked about is schools are taking 2 stances. One, they're saying no, absolutely not. And the other side is they're figuring out how to use it and use it to create learning within the environment. So I thought that was very impactful. And I was sending superintendent X-line texts throughout the conference. It was very interesting, though.
Thank you, sir. I attended the TKCIE Board of Control meeting, and Ann provided a great summary. Lots of discussion the last couple of months about issues in hiring within the Salina School District compared to the outlying districts, and the benefit that those districts have in hiring based on our salary schedule versus their home district salary schedule. So those conversations will continue and hopefully bring some solutions on ways to recruit and retain better in our special ed classrooms in Salina Public Schools. On to item 10, Superintendent's Report. Superintendent X-line.
Okay, a couple quick updates. The first is we had a KISA on-site visit. We met with our KSDE facilitator, and she just worked with us to clarify the accreditation process, the action plan requirements, the documentation requirements. So our district leadership team actually participated in that, and that leadership team is made up of building administrators and some district office staff members. Then I want to give a shout out to Deanna Collins, because one of the things that we did that was, I think, very proactive, you're going to notice a difference in the needs assessment when you review those needs assessments that the buildings are working on right now. You know how we have a meeting and they come and they meet with us and you read all of those? She actually worked with the Ed Programs Department to align that needs assessment with the KISA fundamentals. And so our buildings are actually looking at their needs through the lens of accreditation so that we can make sure that if they're needing more support on structured literacy or on balanced assessment, the things that we're going to be accredited based upon, that you are aware of that and can make budgeting decisions accordingly. So shout out to Deanna on that. I had a team that went to Leavenworth to visit a school within a school, and I want to thank Krista Lindenberger for arranging that visit. It's a program for students who have behaviors that get in the way of their learning and get in the way of others' learning. And so it's a tiered intervention model, and it's an intervention. It's not a placement, it's an intervention where students go to learn behaviors that will allow them to be successful in the classroom, and then they transition back into the classroom. We actually were able to see an elementary classroom in action and a middle school classroom in action. And we were able to talk to the teachers at both levels and the administrators at both levels. It was a great visit. And so we will be getting together and talking about is there a way that we might do something like that, pilot something like that here in Salina, because we continue to hear that behaviors are challenging, and options to help teachers with ways to make kids be successful are needed. The Salina Public Schools had a meet and greet with our new staff at the Alley. Tiffany Snyder and HR actually hosted that event, arranged that event for our new staff as a way to get them connected with each other and with other staff, and so that was a fun event. And then I do have an SPS chat, a coffee chat tomorrow morning. The topic is budget, and we're talking about budget because that was something that came back on the most recent community survey as a place where people just wanted to know, how do we make decisions? What is the board looking at when they're setting priorities? And so Lisa Peters will join me for that. She certainly has more expertise in that area than anyone does in our district, and so there will also then be just time for open-ended question and answer as well. And so those are always a fun time to hear what's on people's minds around the community. And then I just wanted to share, you were all sharing all the great things that are happening and the people that are receiving awards. Today I got to go out with Jennifer Camian, and we were able to award a Growing Greatness Award to Jeremy Miles. He is the building operator, the facility manager out at Coronado, and is really, really good at his job and just always looking for ways to help out. And that is an award that we give to support staff, and so that's always a fun one to be able to do.
Thank you. We have our added negotiations executive session here next, item 12A, and we need 15 minutes for that. Can all jump at once?
Mr. President.
Thank you.
I move that the Board of Education go into executive session at 6:25 for 15 minutes for the purpose of discussing employer-employee negotiations, because if this matter were discussed in open session, it might jeopardize resolution of the negotiated issues, and that the Board of Education reconvene into open session at 6:40 in the SEC room.
Bonnie seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. We'll be back here in this room at 6:40. We are back in open session and have no action to take as a result of that executive session. On to the next item on our agenda, 12B, executive session for personnel.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education go into executive session at 6:43 for 15 minutes for the purpose of discussing the evaluation of non-elected personnel. Because if this matter were discussed in open session, it might invade the privacy of those discussed, and that the Board of Education reconvene into open session at 6:58, right, in the SEC room.
Second. Further discussion, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 4-0. We'll be back. back in open session and do not have action to take as a result of that executive session. Next on our agenda, 12C, another executive session for personnel, 20 minutes.
I move that the Board of Education go into executive session at 7:04 for 20 minutes for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel and their contractual obligations, because if this matter were discussed in open session, it might invade the privacy of those discussed, and that the Board of Education reconvene into open session at 7:24 in the SEC room.
Is there a second? And second, is any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 4-0. We'll be back here at 7:24. We are back in open session and need to extend our time. Is there a motion? Dana? Don't write things then.
He's doing it.
7:27, not 7:37.
I know. Okay. I just don't want to read all of it. Are you doing it? Okay.
Oh my gosh. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, I move that Board of Education go into executive session at 7:27 for 10 minutes for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel and their contractual obligation. Because of this matter discussed in open session, it might invade the privacy of those discussed, and the Board of Education reconvene into open session at 7:37 in the SEC room.
Thank you. In a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 4-0. We'll be back here in open session at 7:37. Back in open session, I need to make another motion for additional time.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education go back into executive session at 7:39 for 10 minutes for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel and their contractual obligations. Because if this matter were discussed in open session, it might invade the privacy of those discussed, and that the Board of Education reconvene into open session at 7:49 in the SEC room.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 4-0. We'll be back in open session at 7:49. In open session, we do have a few motions after those executive sessions.
I'll go first.
Tina?
We accept the early resignation of Debbie Beckmeyer as of October 7th, 2024, and we do not waive liquidated damages.
So motion, is there a second? Jim seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Is there another motion?
We accept the early resignation of Georgia Algier as of March 14, 2025, and we waive the assessment of liquidated damages.
So, motion and Bonnie seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Is there a motion?
I move we accept the resignation of Preston McCorkle as of November 12, 2024, and that we deny his request for a waiver of liquidated damages and to speak with the Board of Education and also to be compensated for through the remainder of the contract year.
Motion, is there a second? Second. And seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. We've reached the end of our action agenda. We'll move into our work session now for a session on capital improvement. This will end our live stream this evening. Thanks for those who joined us tonight. We'll see you in December.